Ashton here with Love, Life and Disability.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Love, Life and Disability with me, Kay Ashton. Today, I am joined by Samir. Now, Samir, after he had a stroke many years ago, his life came crashing down around him. Through a life-changing situation and a debilitating illness and the loss of work. And finally, a divorce. That's not something cool. That's not something nobody wants to go through. He's battled through this, and he is here today to tell us his story. He is also an author and has wrote the book One Fine Day, which was released in December 2020. At the moment, it is also being made into an audio book as well. Hi there, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Kate. Thanks for having me on.
As one author to another author, we always know it's good to get a story out there and to tell our journey about living with different disabilities and how our lives are sometimes turned upside down, but looking at that positivity, and you've got a lot of positivity, and that showcases throughout your book in building resilience, the insights for learning and finding that positivity. And I guess all stories have to begin somewhere. So going back a few years ago, you had a stroke. How was that for you?
Right, and the stroke happened in January 2017, and it was all of a sudden. There were no symptoms whatsoever, and apparently there are two types of strokes. I never knew this till after the fact, because I was constantly asking my doctor how the hell this happened. So apparently there are two types of strokes. One is a lifestyle stroke, which is about, your diet, your drinking habits and your workouts and stuff like that. And the other one is genetic. You're born with this abnormality and this was going to happen. So, I had the genetic kind of stroke, and this could have happened anytime I was like 10 or 20 or 30, or it just happened, that it happened when I was 47. So it was a genetic form of, issue I had. And it results into a stroke for many, and many people are have this abnormality, but not everybody has a stroke, and I was the unfortunate one. But luckily I was home and I could get into a hospital pretty quickly, and that saved my life.
And with the stroke in your situation being genetic, have we managed to identify whom else within your family that might be a genetic carrier of this, or was you maybe the first in your family with the mutation part of the genetic?
Yeah, I was the first one in my family, and the mutation I had was something called a cavernoma, which is an extremely rare form of mutation, and when it ruptures like mine did,
Yeah.
it is very, very lethal, and it's extremely rare, and okay, many people die from this, and a few survive. So I'm in that survivor category. But it's extremely rare.
And I suspect more awareness needs to be done about this, because, as you say, a lot of people only really know of strokes by the lifestyle side of things, whether or not that's smoking, being overweight, and fitness, as you mentioned.
Correct.
And I suspect this is now where you wanted to make your journey and basically showcase it with the world.
In January 2017, my life was pretty normal, very predictable. I had adjusted well to my life in the US after having moved from India in 1990. I was living the American dream. I had a great job. I had a nice house. I had a loving family, a fancy sports car, and I was pretty well settled. So things were going on fine till that fateful morning of January 2017, when I suffered this massive stroke, an extremely rare stroke, again without any warnings.
Mhm.
So that, I call it that day as my one fine day, which means anything can happen to anybody one fine day, and good or bad thing. So in my case, it was a bad thing. So my life, my previous life, which I mentioned, ended forever that day, because I suffered this massive stroke. My left side was paralyzed. I was completely bedridden right after my stroke.
Wow.
And it has changed ever since. So, but I truly felt grateful and thankful that, I had survived this very rare form of stroke, and, was very fortunate, the way I thought, was very fortunate to have this second lease on my life. So I decided, I wanted to share my stories, my experiences, with the rest of the world, or people who are going through adversity or life changes, because I'd done a lot of things in my recovery. So I wanted to share those experiences with other people. And so I decided to share my journey with the world first and foremost for that reason. I wanted to share my experiences. And secondly, I also wanted to, thank a lot of people who have helped me in my journey. So it's also a letter of gratitude towards a lot of people who have helped in my journey back home in the US and also in India. So those were the two reasons: sharing my journey with other folks, so hopefully it can be helpful to them, and also a way to thanking people who helped me in my journey. And Kay, one of the benefits, and I'm sure you also went through it, one of the unexpected benefit for me as I wrote my memoir was that while writing it, it also helped me in my healing journey, which was unexpected,
It is.
and that was great.
No, I totally relate to a lot of things that you've said there, especially
Right,
in the gratification and saying thank you to people by you writing your book and sharing your journey, because it was a way for me to showcase the NHS here in the UK, my friends and my family, how much they meant to me. And if they were not part of my recovery, I wouldn't be
right,
where I am today, through the love and
absolutely.
support of my parents, helping me out, my schooling, to see me through my GCSEs still, and for me to get to where I am. I can't do that
Right,
without support. And it's important that people know that you do need that support around you. But if you haven't got
right.
it, there's other avenues that you can look for it if required.
Aren't we lucky to have that support?
And the support mechanism, it's needed, I think, in our recovery, especially when we when our if so for me, I've always lived with my disability. There's always been something that may change or something new that may come on board. So when something new comes on board, it's that part where, for me, I think I need that bit more support, because either bit you kind of get used to. It's kind of, oh,
Right.
it's that again. But then when it's something new, it's kind of like another kick in the teeth. It's kind of, oh god, here we
Mhm.
go again. And then it's that part. It's, where did you get your support bubble from?
So, when I had my stroke, obviously my ex-wife then helped me a lot, and then a lot of my friends, who come from different, diverse backgrounds back in the US, white, black, educated, uneducated, legal, illegal, you name it. So I've got a very, very good mix of friends, and they helped me tremendously. So besides my ex-wife, my diverse set of friends helped me in the US, and then in India, my mom and my sister are here, and they helped me a lot, and my brother-in-law also helped me a lot, and there are lots of other friends here in India also who helped me a lot. So I was truly blessed.
Did you ever take pity on yourself, where, like initially when this all first happened? Because it can be very easy for us just to sit there and swallow up and let all the negativity take over us. Did that ever happen to you at any point?
Right. So initially, absolutely yes, and I would not be a human if I did. Right. So the question of, why me, why this has happened to me, why my family has to suffer, hounded me nonstop for the first 4 to 6 months after my stroke.
Mhm.
And, probably these thoughts came to my mind, the why me thoughts, every 1 or 2 hours in those first few months.
Well,
But that frequency reduced over a period of time because I started to do things like meditation. I started talking to a clinical psychologist, and that helped me accept reality. And I came to the realization that, after a few months, that self pity and complaining are not going to help.
Mhm.
and that you cannot play the victim beyond a certain time. It's perfectly okay. It's perfectly human to have some pity initially, but that has to quickly stop. I realized that, and I did stop, as so that you can slowly begin to accept your new reality and eventually your new normal.
No, again can totally agree, especially like seeing the psychologists as well. Obviously, for some different disabilities, there's no full cure themselves, and
Right, right,
sometimes it can be the pity or the mental health side of things that ends up debilitating us even more, and it can be
right.
a mixture of medication and rehab and so forth in order for us to then live our full lives. And as you say, it's about accepting that new reality, and that we can get these off days, but we are only human. So
Right.
I do find that if we do just sit there going, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, you start to believe it. And instead of looking at being solution focused, it's finding other ways to go about something. I always say to people, there's 2 + 2 = 4, but so does 1 + 3, so does 4 + 0. There's many ways we can get to a
Right, right.
point and path, for us to be able to like rehabilitate ourselves and different ways to do things, especially now with how technology is changing and the
Mhm.
accessibility around us. I was speaking to one of my friends the other day, and yeah, I know you spoke about like the paralysis on the left side of your body, and I'm on crutches with knee braces. Is we often say it's I'm not disabled, it's the world around me that is disabling. And
Right, right.
like when I'm on crutches, people are like, oh, does it bother you that you need crutches supporting? I'm like, well, no, my crutches are liberating, because without them and without my braces, I wouldn't be able to get about. I wouldn't be able to do everything that I need to do. So now I'm actually quite
Mm.
blessed for them, because they're liberating. They get me out there. They get me doing things. And people think I'm a bit weird. I'm kind of no, because without them,
Right.
the world would make me disabled, because you know I wouldn't be able to do anything. With all illnesses, as we know, it's always very tempting to compare ourselves with different illnesses and different disabilities to other people. Is how do you avoid maybe some of the temptations there?
Right, right. So again, going back to being human, right? We naturally have the tendency to compare, our situation, our, recovery with other. It's very, very tempting. And, your friends and family and colleagues don't make it easier either. They will always think of some examples of, one or two examples they know of people with illnesses and how they did to what they did to face the situation. But again, they are coming from they mean well, right? They are not trying to be mean. They mean well,
Mhm.
and they are coming from an angle, to give us hope. So to keep my sanity, I soon realized that this comparison is not going to help. I reminded myself constantly that every situation and every adversity is different. Everybody has to fight their own battles, and no matter what it is. And slowly but surely, I started to learn to accept that I will heal at my own pace, and which was perfectly okay. I did the things, like meditation, talking to a psychologist, doing yoga, and that helped me a lot uh, in this regard.
It's it is, isn't it? It's because when a lot of people talk, it, if we're to take any disability, I guess it's, oh well, what have you done for your recovery? And I guess in some ways it can be helpful, because then it's like another kind of like support network, especially if
Right.
it's positive and it's different strategies people may have used. Let's say about talking to like psychologists and stuff to like retrain your mind, maybe with CBT, the cognitive behavioral therapy. For those that don't know what CBT is, for some people that can work perfectly well, but then for other people it may not. I'm at work and I told my friend about insomnia at the moment, and she's like, "Oh, I go to a breathing class on a Thursday night." She says, "I'll get you a token for." So this was last night. I actually went to it, and she was like, oh, I struggle with sleep, so I go to this breathing class. Come along to it. She says, I'll get you signed up. So then me and my
Mhm.
housemate was doing breathing exercises last night before we went to bed. And he passed out on the sofa fast asleep halfway through the breathing exercises. And then I
Right.
slept great. So sometimes I think, even though we do compare our illnesses or disabilities, even though it may not be the same disabilities or illnesses, we can sometimes learn the lessons from each other. So it's always a tricky one because it's really tempting to do it. And as you say, we always mean well when we are doing it, is to help each other. But I think for me, it's when it's the negative side of things, it's talking about
Mhm.
the bad, because what you don't want is negativity can breed negativity. And I've heard
Right.
that before, where you're in groups and people are all talking really bad about the illnesses. Yeah, we all get bad days, but then you end up going into that dark hole with them, and sometimes it can be hard to pull yourself back out. And then that's it. Then your day's just gone for the day unless you can really pick yourself back up. But I think definitely if it's solution focused, we can always learn from one another and maybe take, that sounds really good. That I could use that maybe, or give it a go, and it may work.
Right. Right.
May not. How do you distinguish between the negativity of people, comparing different illnesses as opposed to the positivity and working with those type of
Right. Right. See, everybody comes from a positivity angle, but it's up to you to kind of look at it that way. You can go the negative route, you can, but you should avoid doing that. So you have to be, at the end of the day, like I did in my business career, take a lot of input, a lot of ideas and suggestions from a lot of people, but at the end of the day, only you can decide what course of action you want to take. Same thing with with these other things, which again people mean well. You can listen, you can take the lessons learned, but that shouldn't have an impact on you, because for example, if somebody had in my case a stroke, and they recovered in 6 months, that doesn't mean they had the same kind of stroke or the same intensity of the stroke as I did. So as long as I'm rational about it, listen to every point of view, but at the end of the day, you make your own decision on what things you need to do.
no,
Then you're good.
and that's where it's important for us to take ownership of our own decisions as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's Kay, it's very, very important, and I stress that in my book. That you have to take ownership of your decisions. And again, as I said before, people come from a a very, very helpful perspective. They have lots of ideas and suggestions, and not just people. Your therapists, your doctors, all kinds of other audiobooks or recordings. Gives you different ideas and suggestions. But again, as I mentioned, at the end of the day, you have to evaluate them yourself and decide for yourself what you need to pursue.
I
You
t-
know,
it's even health aside, we should always be taking ownership of our decisions. If I was to go to a shop and rob, I've chosen to do that. My that I've If I'm then arrested, I need to take ownership for that. If I was to, I don't know, go do something else, something bad, then whatever outcome that brings, you need to take ownership for it. So it's really important that people take ownership for the decisions they
and
make.
sometimes it's the other way around. But only you can decide on that, and nobody else can take that call. Only you can take that call, no matter what advice. The first step is to accept it,
Mhm.
as hard as it may be, and most importantly, to find ways to move forward and face your new normal with grace and gratitude. But only you can do that. Nobody else can do that for you.
And moving forward, and as we speak about there, is looking at ourselves and us taking our steps forward. I know with my own recovery, the independence in my own recovery was for me the most important part. What about yourself with independence?
Yeah, I think being independent is critical to your healing, and it's very critical, I think. Of course, there are times when you are totally dependent. In my case, the first 2 months, I was completely bedridden. So I had to be dependent on my ex-wife and my friends. So I was, so obviously, depending on your situation, you may be dependent, but you have to eventually be independent, to do the many things in your recovery. It is crucial to do it on your own. There are benefits to doing that, right? It makes you more confident, and you feel better that you're not a burden on other people, and so on and so forth. So psychologically, it helps you. But having said that, it is not that you have to be totally independent 100%. You can take some help from others for certain things, but majority of the time, again, 80%, 90% of the time, you have to do things on your own. You should try to be as independent as possible. And I discovered that in my journey. And to date in my recovery, it's helping me to be independent, because even this trip to India I made it on my own, which was huge for me, because the last few trips I had a friend fly with me. So again, I think it definitely, being independent will help you accept your reality sooner than later.
Totally agree, and it can definitely help with the mindset as well in moving you
Right.
forward. And with friends and family, as we've spoke about, sometimes we can feel like we're a burden on them, because even though we're going through recovery as well, and we're going through different changes in our lives and having to adapt in different ways, our friends and family are also having to adapt in many different ways, whether or not that's themselves physically and mentally. Their houses might need to be adapted. So, for instance, after my spinal operation, we used to have a bath at my mum and dad's. I couldn't get in and out of the bath, so we had to change that then from a bath to a walk-in shower,
Right.
from walking to being in a wheelchair. And
Hmm.
that then means we needed a bigger car. So then I'm also then a financial burden to my parents as well, where before I
Right.
wasn't. Is, as we know, so yeah, the different family members and different friends may have to take on different things themselves in order to support us, and like even new caring responsibilities. So prior to that, my parents had to help me out hygienically growing up due to the back brace that I was wearing when I was 9 years of age. But it's kind of like, in some ways it's like you're a child again, because they're having to help
Uh-huh.
having to help you go to the toilet, look after your different needs that you may have. It's how do we help navigate and ensure that our friends and family are supported too along this journey?
Right. So you're absolutely right. I mean, as much as your illness as a patient is hard, it's equally hard for caregivers and family members. So the first thing you cannot, you first thing you can do is not take things personally. If you see any fatigue you may see in caregivers, family, or friends, with their involvement with you, or the intensity of your care, or the interactions, you cannot take it personally. It is totally understandable, as no one, including the person closest to you, can be there 100%. They are just humans like you are. And just because you see some fatigue does not mean that their love for you has diminished, or they care less about you. You just have to acknowledge that they're also humans like you.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, the caregivers or family who are taking care of you don't even realize that they are doing this. So again, don't take it personally. It's but natural. Uh, and what you as a patient can do is, acknowledge the fact that it's quite hard on them. So that's definitely what you can do. And make sure that they ensure their well-being. Talk to them regularly, whether it's your friends, whoever. Talk to them regularly, and help them get some support, and stuff like that. Whether it could be a a medical professional or household help or gadgets which will make their life easier.
Who do you look up to for support?
So right now, right after my stroke, it was my ex-wife. She helped me tremendously. So even though we are divorced, I have to acknowledge that she did help me a lot. But now, as I recover, back home, my friends are taking good care of me there. But here, my mom and sister are helping me a lot. So again, going back to you have to make sure that you tell the people who are caring for you that you value them and you care for them in spite of the illness. That's very critical. I've found. I did that with my ex-wife. I did that with my friends. No, I did with my mom and sister. So it's very important to do that.
So, as we spoke about, when you had your stroke, prior to that, you had a completely different lifestyle, and I'd probably use the word an able-bodied person. You was able to go out there. You was doing a lot of different things. Then, when you had your stroke, you then became disabled and you got a disability. How has that changed your view and your perception on disability? And do you feel you've learned new skills and gained more of a positive outlook on life, having to adjust your life?
Right. So I mean this was all of a sudden. Again, if somebody would have told me a few years ago that I would have a massive stroke, I would be not working on long-term disability and divorced and writing a book, I would have laughed for sure. I call myself an accidental author. I never thought about writing a book till I wanted to share my stories in 2018. So my thoughts on I never had thought about this before, but after this happened, my disability, what I've realized is, and I've decided that doesn't define me. It's not who I am. I will work through my disabilities, and it was extremely hard for me to do this book, but I managed to do it because I call it my calling to help others was strong, and I found a way to do it, and I actually wrote the book. So my thoughts, are that you can't really think about why this has happened to you. You have to accept the situation. And in my book, I have this motif in my book. It is what it is, right? So you have to accept the reality the way it is, not what you think you deserve or what you think what you want. So I think that's the key in your disabilities. You have to work around. You have to reinvent, and that's what I'm trying to do, is reinvent myself. I never thought I will have this, but now since I have it, I have to figure out, reinvent myself. And I had a choice to make, right, in 2018, that I could go be depressed and sad about my situation, or accept what is happening and try to redefine my life. So I chose the latter, and that's very important for any person who is who is suffering from disability or any adversity or life changes, is to focus only on the positive and for the future, because going back and complaining and self-pity are not options.
So, as we know, you've got your book published at the moment and it came out last year in December. Where can people go to buy your book and learn about your journey even more?
Sure. So the book is available on Amazon platform worldwide. So in the UK, it's definitely Amazon UK. But I believe you can also order it through retailers like Foyles, Gardners, Waterstones, and Blackwells. And also, people can check out my website. There's a lot of information about me, about my journey on my website, sameerbhide.com, SAMEERBHIDE.com. I do use Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, so people can follow me there. My profile is Sameer_author on Instagram and Twitter, and on Facebook it's Sameer Author. So people can follow me there as well. And all those links are on my website as well.
Perfect. Well, we'll ensure we put the links below and we'll get everyone following and retweeting as well. Thank you so much for coming today. It's been an absolute pleasure to hear about your amazing story and your struggles on how you're turning negative situations into positivity.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. This was really a nice chat.